This fly we're going to tie is an old fly from Colorado that I used to use. I've changed it a lot over the years. It's gone through a lot of different changes and variations. But we're going to start off using a Tiemco 2302, which is a bent curved shank hook. You can tie hoppers on this and stonefly patterns. It's a nice hook because it's got a nice big gap to it. Then we're going to add on a bead to it. This happens to be a bright bead by Spirit River. It's a 5/32 black bead, and all we're going to do is we're going to insert this. These beads are countersunk on one side, so one side of the hole is going to be bigger than the other. So you want to put the point of the hook through the smallest hole and let it come right over the top. Then we're going to take this, put it in our vise, and now this bead flops around on this hook quite a bit. So what we do to combat that is just take a little bit of lead wire here, and you wrap it onto the shank of your hook. Pinch and break that off. Then just shove that lead wire right up under that, and that'll put that bead right square on the hook and keep it from moving around. If you don't do this, you can get away with it a lot of times, but sometimes that bead will get kind of cockeyed on there, and your thread will be on one side of the bead and the other side will be exposed. So if you do that, that'll keep that bead good and square on the hook. Now we're going to take, I'm using some 6/0 black uni thread. We're going to attach this to the hook, and I like to put a nice hump of thread right in front of that lead and really build up a ramp of thread in front of that lead wrap there, because using this small diameter thread, that can slide back. And if that starts to slide, your whole body can slide off the hook. So go ahead and tie that in place, and we're going to rotate this, move this thread right to the rear of the hook. And then I'm going to take one little strand of peacock curl here. We'll tie this peacock curl on right at the rear. And just come up just a couple turns. Now you're going to make a nice little ball of peacock curl right here at the back. And this peacock curl ball is not necessary. You can, a lot of guys will just tie on their goose biots and get them to splay, but this helps to, if you're having trouble getting your goose biots to splay out, if you build this little ball on the back, it'll really help you to get these goose biots to splay outwards. So now we're going to take, this is just a goose biot that's been stripped and they come packaged like this. And this is the dark brown, or a lot of times you'll see it marketed as Prince Nymph Brown. And you're going to take 2 of these little biots, and this is going to make our tail. Some guys will tie these on 2 at a time. I like to do it individually. I'm going to lay it right on the side, up against that little ball, and then take a couple wraps over, and then that little ball of peacock curl will really make that splay out. A lot of times if you just tie the 2 of them on together, they'll kind of end up as one tail instead of looking like 2 tails. Then you can take your second one, measure it up so they're about the same length. We'll tie this on. So now we've got our nice forked tail that a stonefly has. Wrap over those excess ends. Now we're going to tie on some wire ribbing here. This is a medium red UTC wire. You can use copper, you can use the amber. The original pattern, they actually used a piece of burlap. It's kind of got a tan rib to it. This is one of the changes I've made on this fly, is putting this red wire on it. I don't know why, but for some reason having some red on a fly seems to be something that trout really key into. There's a few classic materials that are very trout catching materials. Peacock curl is one of them, and the color red seems to be very productive on flies. I use it a lot. So I'm going to tie this piece of wire in right here, tie it in right at the back. Now I'm going to bring my thread right up towards the front of the lead here. And now this technique for putting peacock curl on is one that's a little bit unique. I've been influenced quite a bit by a guy from Dillon. His name's Al Troth, a pretty well-known guy that invented the Elk Hair Caddis. And Al Troth kind of developed the reverse palmer style. And you can use it for a lot of different ways other than just hackle. And we're going to do it with the peacock curl. And I'm going to show you why I like using this method. Now you're going to pull off about 8 to 10 strands of peacock curl. And we're going to go ahead and bunch these ends I'll just trim these off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this on up near the front of the hook. I'm going to wrap about halfway back and then bring this thread back forward. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to make a couple wraps of peacock herl forward here. What that's going to do is create more bulk so that we can get a nice cigar taper to our body. Another thing you can do if you're having a tough time getting that taper is you can actually dub a body that gives it kind of that cigar shape. But if you tie the peacock herl in this way, even on like a Prince nymph, what it'll do is it'll allow you to make it fatter up towards the head and it tapers down to a narrower tail. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and wrap this peacock herl, make a few wraps forward, and then wrap right back over them, right to the rear. Then we're going to take our copper wire that we had here, or our red wire, wrap right over top of that peacock herl, get one good wrap on it. Then you can evenly space your wire wraps forward here. Make a couple wraps. Then with wire, you don't want to cut wire too often with your scissors, or if you're going to use scissors, take an old pair and keep on the side of your bench, and then you can cut it. The other thing you can do with wire is you just pull up and wiggle. It'll usually break right off. That way you won't dull all your scissors, because cutting wire will kill it. Now that we have these extra ends here, we just come in with our scissors, trim those off nice and flush, and now that'll give you that nice kind of tapered peacock herl body. Okay, now we're going to work our thread back here to just not quite halfway, but almost halfway, and we're going to tie in two different materials for a wing case here. First thing we need to do is this is thin skin, and we're going to actually put the thin skin because this is going to be the last material we pull forward, so we've got to tie it on first. I'm going to cut a little narrow strip here, a little narrow strip of this thin skin, and it's a flexible plastic material that they have printed a print onto. And you take that backing off, and now we're going to tie this in, because this is going to be the last material we pull over, so we want to tie it in first. And then we're going to tie in our piece of mylar here, a large Mirage Tencel. And this stuff will give our fly a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of flash, which, especially if you're fishing this in kind of off-color water, that little bit of sparkle will maybe help the fish see it. And what this is going to do when we pull it over, it'll give it a little flash, but it's still going to have that kind of natural look to it.